way we decide to act toward that person. We talked about when we go to someone and we want to talk about a situation, try to clear up a situation, we talked about 4 H's that we should do when we go to talk to someone. The first one's what? Hear. We need to listen, right? We need to listen. If we're going in good faith and trying to work this issue out, we need to really listen and hear. What else? Honest. We need to be honest with them. Hey, you hurt my feelings. Let's get this out in the open. This is what I feel. We need to be, number 3, humble. We need to be humble when we go to someone. And then number 4, we need to be helpful. We learned last week that we need to change our heart and we need to be a part. Be a part, not a part, right? But be a part of their lives. We need to reconnect with them. And those 2 things will get us started toward forgiveness. Today's lesson, the objective is to help us be the kind of person that can forgive, and all this stuff that we've talked about, kind of understand the importance of all this, the importance of forgiveness. In our starter questions this morning, if you studied your book and went over your questions, the question is asked, will more miss heaven because of their attitude than their actions? What's your thoughts on that? Will more miss heaven because of their attitude than their actions? Someone look up Mark 7, 21 and 23. Mark 7, 21 and 23. What's some thoughts while somebody's looking that up? Let me give you a hint. Where does your actions come from? Your attitude. Where does your attitude come from? Your heart, right? From the heart. Someone have Mark 7? Yes, sir. 21 through 23. All that stuff that Roger mentioned just then. Where does it come from? All those actions, right? Sexual immorality, lust, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff comes before the actions took place, right? It comes from within, within your heart. Proverbs, write this down, Proverbs 4:23. The Lord says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from within it flows the springs of life. Keep your heart with all vigilance. If your heart, 1 John 3:21, if your heart doesn't condemn us, we have confidence before God. If your heart doesn't condemn you, we have confidence before God. How does your heart condemn us? You just said it, right? Our actions from the heart, from within, these evil things can come from within us. How about our attitude? What attitude would you encourage a friend? Would you encourage a friend to cultivate if they needed to start forgiveness with someone? What would you tell them? Hopefully you'd tell them something we've learned, right? What would you tell them? What do you need to start with? What have we learned? Some one-word answers. Humility, right? If you want to start forgiveness, start with humble. Look at yourself, right? Have we been forgiven? We're going to talk about that in a minute. What else? Kindness. Tender heart, kind heart, one of our memory verses a couple of weeks ago. What else? Compassion. Compassion. This patience. Is our God long-suffering with us? He showed that, hasn't he? Or we wouldn't be here.
I'm afraid too many times we turn them off when we go the first time. Hey, I'm not going back no more. They want to witness. I don't know. It's not a good attitude to have.
At least 490 times, right? Never give up. I wonder if anybody's ever tried at least 489 times before they. I doubt it. Compassionate, right? Whoever said that, that's the verse from today, our memory verse for today. So compassionate, merciful, tender-hearted, kindness, loving, patience. All those are attitudes that we should encourage our friends that they're dealing with forgiveness. So today, Brother Winkler, as you listen into the video, look for this. He's talking about living inside another skin. In 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, look for these three sections he talks about. Love's importance in verse 13. Love's guidance to forgiveness. And love's transcendence.
I visited the prison island of Alcatraz, and it was eerie. I followed a tape-guided tour and stepped outside into what they called the rec yard, where inmates could breathe the fresh saltwater air for just a few minutes. I studied the small 5 by 9 foot cells. You could reach out and touch each side of the wall by stretching out your hands. I saw shrapnel marks in the floor and on the walls from dispensed munitions. But the one thing that made a lasting impression more than anything else was a small window in what they called D block. D block was made up of 6 solitary confinement cells. The cells had metal walls, a metal floor, and when the door was shut, the inmates lived in darkness that was so thick you could almost feel it. Outside the cell was a hall and a small window giving the prisoners a view of San Francisco across the bay. They were totally isolated, destined to a day of blank silence inside their cells. And if they were allowed to step outside of their cell, they could look out that little window and be taunted by the happiness of others miles away. If you and I haven't been forgiven of someone in our lives, we're living inside our own cold cell of solitary confinement. God isn't in our lives. He won't forgive us if we don't forgive others. The person or persons needing our forgiveness aren't in our lives. We don't want them to be. But even more, if people really knew how bitter we felt, we might not have them in our lives either. We're alone in our bitterness. Remember the story that Jesus told in Matthew 18? It was about a servant that refused to forgive. Look at his life. The man's master wasn't in his life. When he found out about the man's lack of mercy, he said, "You wicked servant," and turned the man over to jailers or tormentors. The person this man wouldn't forgive wasn't in his life. He had driven that man away to debtor's prison. And don't miss this little tidbit. The unforgiving's fellow servants were grieved. That's another way of saying they were upset with him and told their master what he had done. You see, the man isolated himself from everyone by his failure to forgive. Of interest, Jesus left us with this particular story, left this unforgiving man with the tormentors, and closed with a warning. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. We must have a heart willing to forgive. We're right back to having the right kind of heart again, aren't we? So let's look at that memory verse one more time. We've been working on it. Colossians 3:12-14. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has complained against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, above all these put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. This passage teaches us to have a compassionate heart. It gives us a list of virtues that flow from a compassionate heart. But then it tells us to tie all of this together with love. If I'm going to be a forgiving person, I have to be a person of love, literally agape love, a love that seeks to understand and do what is best for the one loved. That means I'm going to have to, if I want to be forgiven, I'm going to have to spend time living inside the skin of the one needing my forgiveness. I need to get inside their heart and see life from their point of view. So let's turn to what we call the love chapter of the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13, and connect it to the idea of forgiving others. The chapter might be divided into three sets of thought. There is the importance of love, the guidance of love, and the transcendence or greatness of love. First, there's the importance of love, verses 1-3. Love is more important than anything I say. If I speak with the tongue of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Love is more important than anything I have. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, nothing. Love is more important than anything I do. If I give all I have, and if I deliver my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. I might be able to speak or preach sermons that are more persuasive than anyone else. I might have more skill sets to employ for Jesus than anyone else. I might appear to be more committed to God than anyone else. But if I'm not willing to understand what one's gone through and desire what's best for the one that's hurt me, I'm worth nothing. This beautiful chapter continues with the guidance that love offers, verses 4-8. For example, love keeps us from getting mad and getting even. Love is patient, literally long in coming to anger, and kind. Love does not envy. It's not zealous, running in the wrong way. Love will not allow us to get upset and mistreat someone that's mistreated us. But then further, love keeps us from being self-absorbed, easily angered, and self-avenging. Read it. Love doesn't boast. It's not arrogant or rude. It doesn't insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Did you see those words? Rude, irritable, resentful, wrongdoing? Those are the logs that fuel the fire of an unforgiving spirit. Love won't let that happen. But then also love keeps us from giving up on each other. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Love puts a protective cover over the one loved, believes and hopes for the best. And look at that phrase, love never ends. It translates words used for hissing an actor off the stage. Love will keep us from being hissed away because others thought we should have been more tolerant or tender in dealing with someone that hurt us. Finally, the Bible's love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, reminds us that love is greater than anything else. Verses 8 through 13. Love's greater than miracles, for example. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongue speaking, they will cease. As for knowledge, that's a knowledge, a miraculous knowledge for which we've never had to study. It will pass away. Not so with love. It never fails. Love is greater than faith. So now faith, hope, and love abide. These three. But the greatest of these is what? Not faith. The greatest of these is love. It's greater than miracles. It's greater than faith. Love is greater than hope. Again, now faith, hope, and love abide. These three. But the greatest of these is love. Faith is the foundation of Christianity. Hope is the compensation of Christianity. But watch this. Love is the motivation of Christianity. Remember, Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. One of those things he repeatedly commands is for us to forgive. Love moves us to do just that. So let's look at this memory verse just one more time. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Colossians 3, 12 to 14. What motivates us to forgive and live in harmony? Love. With your study leader, let's look at a multitude of ways this forgiving love blesses our lives. See why this subject should probably be one of our favorite. And I'll see you for our next study.
So what's your thoughts? What'd you pick up on that you hadn't thought about before? How about the story of the unforgiving servant? You always thought about that? How he isolated himself from three different groups? I'd not thought about that before. He not only isolated himself from his master, but also from the other servant that he didn't forgive, and all the rest of the servants, right? That said, look, look, master, he doesn't forgive his servant. Have you thought about that? How he chose and what the consequences was? Does anybody else think about that, or had you already thought about that before till he brought it out? He chose to not treat another servant as he had been treated. He chose not to be patient with him. He chose not to be compassionate with him, and so he received consequences. How about the importance of love? How he broke it down. The importance of love. What is the importance of love in 1 Corinthians 13? Is it as important as our actions? more important, right? We can have things, we can be doing things for the church and appear that we're doing things as leading a Bible study or being an elder or leading singing, or we can appear to be doing the right things, but if Johnny's heart is not right by being an elder, or if my heart's not right by teaching Bible class, does it mean anything? It doesn't. It doesn't. As he said, God can give us talents to use in the kingdom, and we could use them, but if we're not using them with the right heart, it means nothing. How about guidance? Love's guidance. What does love's guidance keep us from doing? Does it keep us from getting mad, frustration with others? If we had love, would that keep us from it? It guides us in the right way? It would help. Absolutely. If we thought about love, tried to love others, would we acknowledge their mistakes better and look at the way we are, the way we make mistakes? How about rudeness? Love keeps us, he says, love keeps us, guides us, keeps a lot of things bad from happening if we love.
Something is going to guide us, so if it's not love.
Very good. Cindy?
It's a motivator for us. When we love someone, it motivates you to do the good things that God wants us to do.
Okay, so he says, that's exactly right. He says faith is the foundation of Christianity. Hope is the compensation of Christianity. And love is what? The motivation of Christianity. It's a good way to put it, right? Is love greater than faith and hope? The Bible says it is. And last, transcendence or greatness. That's what we just talked about. Love is greater than miracles, right? It's greater than anything. It can overcome anything. Faith, hope is greater. Love is greater than faith and hope. According to Jesus' parable of an unforgiving servant, what does it take to have a willing heart to forgive? We've mentioned some of these to begin with. What are the things that's mentioned, if you read in your book this week, what are some of the attributes of a forgiving heart that's mentioned there? Patience. Patience. In verse 26 and 29, the servant failed and said, "Have patience with me." The word patience is one that teaches us to be long in getting angry, to be long-suffering like God. If we have a temper, we need to work on that temper. We need to work on being patient with others as God's patient with us. What else? Forgiving. Having mercy, verse 33. We must be willing to feel with those. He's mentioned that before. Feel with those that have hurt us. We need to look at life from their point of view and try to understand life from their point of view. What else? It's in our Bible verse this week, or last 2 or 3 weeks. Compassion. In verse 27 and 33, he had compassion. Think about how often we read compassion from Jesus and how he has compassion. When he saw the crowd, what did he have? He had compassion because they were like what? You remember? He looked on the crowd and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, without someone to lead them. In the parable the master took back his forgiveness of all that the servant owed, how would you feel if everything you had ever done was no longer forgiven because you didn't forgive someone? How about if our master took back all of our forgiveness that he's given us because we couldn't forgive someone? I mean, that's what the parable's about, right? We would be eternally lost. Do you know why it's quiet in here after that question? It's the same reason when I read the question, I started thinking. Makes you think, right? Deep. Makes you look deep, Gene. Well, if he was positive, he'd think I was in the right place, right? Because he was with somebody that could put his ear back on. So our Bible verse this week, real quick. We talked about our memory verse 2 weeks ago, our identity. Our last week, our empathy. And this week, our unity. In our Bible verse, put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, that's unity, and if one has a complaint against the other, forgiving each other, that's unity, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. We need to try to be unified. We should be unified as disciples of Christ, following Him, our shepherd. As we try to follow Jesus, we should follow His example. He helped others. We should help bear one another. Hold ourselves up when others have pushed us down. And it should help us to forgive one another, helping us be merciful and loving like Jesus. Any other thoughts from today's lesson? Anybody?